Joining us now, he is the senior national senior national security correspondent for Newsweek Daily Beast. He's Eli Lake. Hey, Eli, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. I got a little news.
Oh, do you?
Oh, well,
let's go right to it.
News. It's media news, but Josh Rogan, in my view, just simply the best national security, foreign policy reporter, is coming to the Daily Beast and Newsweek. We're going to be an unstoppable team. We just announced it. I'm very happy about that. So,
oh wow, that's a big.
Now it is news. We broke it on WMAL.
Big move by the Daily Beast to pick up Josh Rogan.
I feel it is. It's a great move by the Daily Beast. I think it's a great move for my friend Josh Rogan, and we're just delighted to have him. Well,
great. Well, listen, we want to mine the wealth of Eli Lake while we're here. And listen, we want to get to Benghazi in a minute, definitely. But I've got to ask you about Syria and the strikes over the weekend from Israel. First of all, you actually talked about the fact that Israel, the red line was crossed as far as they were concerned, and they went after Syria. What inspired that, and what has the U.S.'s position been on it in response?
Israel is concerned that material, chemical weapons, advanced conventional weapons, either from Syria or from Iran, will be shipped to Hezbollah in the chaos of the civil war. They have kept very close intelligence tabs on it. This is not the first time the Israelis have struck inside Syria. The first time was in January, at least since the civil war. And they also, in 2007, they hit Al-Kabar, which was a nuclear reactor, with help from the North Koreans in Syria. They've violated Syrian airspace probably for the last 10 years. I mean, it started with these sonic boom things where F-16s would fly over his summer palace as a warning, and then it's kind of slowly escalated. But the bottom line is that for the last year, people like Ambassador Michael Oren and Benjamin Netanyahu and top Israeli officials have explained to their counterparts in the United States, this is Israel's red line, and very specifically, if there are advanced conventional weapons such as anti-aircraft artillery, if there's advanced conventional weapons such as, very heavy payload rockets such as the Fatah 110, if that is going from Iran to Hezbollah, or Hezbollah is in some ways acquiring that because of this war, we will make sure to take that out in the middle of the transshipment. That has been explicitly clear, although they did not ask for permission or give advance warning in this latest set of strikes, but that's been made explicitly clear by the Israelis to the United States, and the United States reaction has not been, hold off. It's almost the opposite of the dialogue or the diplomacy with Iran. It's been okay, and in some ways, I think the message is, Obama is being very careful to say that his red line isn't crossed, but Israel's red line was crossed, and they took action, and you didn't see a peep from the United States. In fact, Obama's statements were in some ways very supportive.
All right, let me ask you about what's going on with Benghazi, because it seems that over the weekend we're beginning to get a lot more detail from some of these so-called whistleblowers who have things that they want to say, and they will say them on Wednesday at a hearing before Darrell Issa's Oversight Committee. What do you think about these new revelations and the fact that even CBS News was saying this weekend that it looks like a cover-up?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I would say that I'm in a little bit of a weird position because I have something that's embargoed that I'm not allowed to talk about until noon, and you'll see it in my piece.
Oh, it's all right, Eli. Go ahead. It's noon somewhere.
I got to respect the rules there. So I want to make sure that I don't step on that. But what I will say is that what we saw with Darrell Issa on Face the Nation yesterday made it very clear that he has. He started talking about one of the whistleblowers he has, Gregory Hicks, who served as Ambassador Chris Stevens' top deputy in Libya. And what Hicks was basically saying is that nobody in Libya thought there was ever a protest. That's really important because the original story for 11 days after the Benghazi attacks on the anniversary of 9/11 was there was a protest outside the consulate, as there were protests, in Cairo and Tunisia and other places, that got out of hand and became violent, and that ended up in torturing the embassy and the killing and the murder of our ambassador and 3 other Americans. Nobody in Libya believed there was ever a protest. So that's a very important point to get out there. It has kind of been reported before, but we're now starting to understand that there were whistleblowers who are going to, I think, claim that they were somewhat suppressed or their information was suppressed. Now, the other thing is we got to put this together with something that happened late last month, and that is the interim report from all of the Republican chairmen got into more detail than almost anything I've seen, and I've been covering the Benghazi story, as you know, from the very beginning, about exactly the process for those talking points that Susan Rice read. And not just Susan Rice. I mean, this is what Jay Carney was saying. This is what the Obama administration was pretty much saying in the week and a half, 2 weeks after the attack. And the process for developing those talking points looks, at least based on when you're putting all this together, and I think we'll see this with the whistleblowers, to be a very, very politicized process. And so what you've got here is almost an inverse in some ways, or it's very interesting. It's almost an inverse of the old Democratic points against the Bush administration for WMD in Iraq. They say intelligence was massaged and altered when it was spoken about in public by top Bush officials in order to get us into a war. In this particular case, I think what we've seen is intelligence was tamped down and when discussed with the public in order so that Obama did not have to use, military-type responses like a drone attack or something else.
Just before the election.
Perpetrators.
Yeah, let me ask you, though, you've got this story that's coming out at noon, and I wouldn't dare ask you to break an embargo. I know that's something you wouldn't do. But can you generally characterize the nature of the scoop?
It's not, I don't want to, there's information that's embargoed that relates to this week's whistleblower testimony that will be coming out, that we'll see at the hearings this week before ISIS committee, and that's about as far as I'll go.
All right, thanks.
All right, we'll look for that. And one last question, just to the media angle on this. Eli Lake, as you mentioned, you were one of the few who did follow this Benghazi story from the beginning. After you see Bob Schieffer yesterday on Face the Nation basically say it looks like, after seeing what these whistleblowers have to say, there could very well have been a cover-up at the State Department, and you see the momentum that this story has had over the last 7 days. What do you think of the media reaction here, and whether they can continue to sort of ignore the story in a way that, let's face it, many media outlets have?
I don't think they're going to be able to ignore it for a couple of reasons. One, you've got hearings, and, hearings on the Hill get cameras, and people are going to have probably cover that. I think you'd see CNN and other people covering that. We'll see how if these hearings deliver the kind of dramatic testimony that, I think some are expecting.
Jay Carney says that these hearings are just political, Eli Lake. Is that true?
Well, Jay Carney isn't in charge of the, assignments for reporters in Washington, and I think you're going to see a lot of people probably covering that hearing. And ISIS team is very, very good at sort of putting enough chum in the water to get a lot of attention and stuff. But more importantly, you've got an IG investigation into the Accountability Review Board that the State Department and the White House have said is the final word on what happened in Benghazi. So their own review that is sort of, saying, listen, this is what we looked at it and this is what happened. They never interviewed Secretary of State Clinton at the time. All of that is now being looked at by the State Department's own Inspector General.
All right.
That's another storyline that's going to come out. And I'd say there's probably going to be more reports, more revelations, and more disclosures from other Republicans who are also investigating it in addition to ISIS.
More coming on Benghazi, says Eli Lake from the Daily Beast. We got to roll, Eli. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing your scoop at noon today.